Hello, everyone. Welcome to our new episode of Free Lunch. This is your host, Kim Kariuki, and I'm joined by the one and only, ever present, Mr. Ken Gishinga. Ken, salimia wananchi.
Hi, thank you, Kim. I hope you've been well. Great to hear from you. It's another great week. Last time I had such an interesting time discussing affordable housing with you, and I'm looking forward to another episode that's equally intellectually gratifying.
Same here, same here. I think it was, and actually in today's paper, there was a piece about real estate again. And so I was like, oh man, we really probably should have interchanged these episodes. But nice. I'm hoping that people will read that piece in the newspaper today and get a sense of what the recent developments are. But today we have another topic for all of you that we hope will be of interest. And Ken, do you want to talk to our audience and tell them what that topic is?
Oh, yes, indeed. I think one of the objectives we are trying to achieve here on Free Lunch is to really discuss themes that are happening at the current time. So, really discussing current affairs. And one of the big topics that came up this week was this week we'll be marking the World SME Day. I think
Mhm.
this is the third time it's being celebrated. And I thought it would be an excellent opportunity to really dig into the lives of small business owners and really try to understand how are they surviving COVID, what are the expectations moving forward, and what does World SME Day really mean for them? What do you think?
Such a good topic, Ken. And I think it's great that this year, there'll be a lot of focus on MSMEs, largely, thinking about resilience and how they can cope through the COVID-19 crisis. And, there's another piece in the paper today that was saying how the IMF has dealt a humongous blow to the world economy. Sorry, the IMF was talking about how COVID-19 has dealt an amazing blow to the world economy, and it all starts off with small business. And so it's great to be able to talk about this topic. And I know you've been up and about talking to a few people and gaining the perspectives of business owners. Would you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. It's difficult to talk about SMEs in theory. At the end of the day, you need to roll up your sleeves and go out there and really talk to one or two business owners. And we were quite fortunate to have two ladies who are business owners. One is running a bakery, another one is running a restaurant. I don't know if it's a coincidence that both are women. I don't know if women are more disposed to talking about their businesses than men. Maybe we can talk about that. But yeah, this is some of the things that they had to say.
Excellent. So guys, listen in and we will come right back after we've heard from the entrepreneur.
I ran a bakery that is 1 year old. When the pandemic hit in mid March, we saw a dip in sales. There was a period when it was very quiet, inquiries and sales were very low. But luckily, over the last 1 year, we had invested heavily in digital marketing and online delivery channels. This really enabled us to quickly shift, our business model to online. So we now were looking at online ordering and online and delivery. When I look at this period for SMEs, I'd say ultimately there has been several challenges affecting SMEs, and unclear government regulations is some of them. Especially for example in our case in the food industry, it's around the COVID-19 license, and so that has really affected in terms of the opening and operations of some of the businesses. But also when I look at me as a business, for me, I've used this period as an opportunity to upskill and reskill my employees, just in readiness for the new ways of doing business that we'll be faced with going forward. Yeah.
Okay, Ken, what did you think of the perspectives of the MSME entrepreneur who's running a bakery?
I thought her views were quite profound. I
Mm.
think I felt she was a bit ahead of the curve in the sense that she had seen the need to invest in digital platforms,
Mm.
something that a lot of businesses kind of knew was important, but hadn't gone all out into investing in it. But out of her own personal strategy, she had already gotten into digital deliveries, digital ordering. And I mean, looking at her social media pages, she has an incredible following on Instagram and such. And I thought that was quite profound. And this is something maybe other SMEs could borrow. What did you think about it?
No, absolutely. Very interesting. I agree with you that it was very uh, profound and remarkably innovative of her to think about how do you create a strong consumer experience online? How do you leverage digital channels to deliver your product, your message, and interact with customers? Certainly it may be a moot point at this point, but like a number of businesses were caught off guard in terms of their continuity plans and what do you do if you can't meet your customers because of a contagion like this. And so digital certainly has opened up the space, and I know a number of funders are thinking about, can digital be a path and a credible pathway to not only supporting resilience among SMEs, but also using it as an opportunity to even expand the bouquet of offerings and visibility that MSMEs would have. So, the bakery is one example, but you can imagine everything from your vegetable seller in the market to your agri entrepreneur to someone in retail, a small retail business. How can all of them be connected by a digital platform to support one, visibility of their transaction levels to help them access credit? Or how can you create a scenario where these MSMEs have enough confidence to be able to grow because they're able to access a customer base that's broader than the walk-in customers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the opportunity of expanding the customer base, expanding the operations, I think is definitely a theme that you've correctly touched on. And I think also the government has seen it. There's that proposal to introduce digital tax. I think
Mm,
it's after really looking at how these platforms are hosting the next generation of entrepreneurs. The
mm,
government is also keen on getting a slice of that. So I think it's interesting because and I know we talked about this during the
mm,
time of the matatus.
mm,
What are the pros and cons of this? But I thought it was quite interesting. What I would have wanted to hear more from her was
mm.
how it's affecting the different generations of clients. I think
Right.
digital platforms tend, things like Instagram and stuff, really speak to a below 35 demographic. I was just
Yeah.
keen to maybe to see how that would have affected maybe the over 50
Indeed,
generation.
indeed. Even when you're thinking about segmentation, totally spot on. And the thing that sort of comes to mind now is, the businesses that are able to shift to being more digitally present certainly have a very different customer segmentation strategy. So you're likely, like you're saying, they're likely targeting your up and upwardly mobile customer segment, probably aged between a certain band. But then the question that I have is whether or not when you go to a digital platform, you're able to command premium pricing for your product. Because, when you think about it, like if I have a Facebook page that I'm accessing and presenting to be able to offer my products, there's a lot more involvement on my side as an entrepreneur to manage that platform, to make sure I'm in touch with my customers, to make sure that the products are updated, to take photos every day of my stock. And so, what is unclear to me is whether the MSMEs at this point have enough economies of scale to be able to do it profitably alongside their mainstream business, or if it's just a play where all of this activity is going to be online and very little of it will be offline. But even on that, if you do it, if you have a mix of online versus offline, can you command a higher premium? So can you maybe charge your produce or your products that you're selling online at a higher rate with the hope that you're going to give your customers a stronger, a better experience? You're going to be able to deliver more value because you're engaging with them. You're ensuring end to end delivery, order closure, etc. What do you think, Ken? I feel like there could be some uh, offsetting that might happen if businesses go online and then they're not able to command a high enough premium to sustain them online.
Wow, Kim, you've touched on such a powerful point. And I think it's important we reflect on sort of the origins of digitization in sort of these small businesses. And it has undergone as a remarkable change. About maybe 5 years ago, you'd find bakeries that were purely online, sort of like only had a Facebook interface or had a website.
Yeah.
They were kind of considered to be lower tier because they didn't have the physical presence, because people want to come into a nice bakery and really feel the experience.
Right.
And they didn't have they kind of lost on the brand equity. But that has almost done a full circle right now, where the brands that have that digital presence sort of have a premium, if they are sort of building onto some physical presence, because here in Kenya and in most developing countries, still the physical still holds a lot of sway in terms of, especially when it comes to food. And I want to see the levels of hygiene. I want to see how clean your bakery is. I want to see your ingredients. I really want to see these things that I'm consuming. So that I don't think will ever move away. So I think the people who benefit a lot are people who still have those physical spaces, but now have a layer of digital that is accentuating the already physical interactions. I think the people who can do that will tend to sort of command a higher brand equity and definitely better pricing in the market.
Correct. And that's interesting. And I wonder whether, with that, the very small of the small SMEs will be sort of locked out because they can only juggle so much. So I remember when I was having conversations with folks who run restaurant type businesses, the idea of being able to showcase what's going on in what's being put into your food, right? So what is the process of sourcing produce, and how does that produce actually end up into the dish that's served before you, seemed very high, and this was pre-corona, seemed very high in terms of appeal to the business owners and customers. And so it felt like one of the top things that they want to do. But then it was bogged down by the reality of the complication. So that would mean someone has to follow, maybe take a few pictures of produce being bought at the market, take a few photos of the produce being converted into a meal at a particular location, and then the meal being hygienically delivered to the point of sale. And so it seems like that could be an overwhelming activity. And this isn't even the very small SME, and this is someone who's experienced, had been a caterer in the past. And it just seems like if that was overwhelming for an established business, all the more overwhelming I can imagine it would be for someone just looking to start out.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the quality of photography that's on the websites these days and the Instagram pages, these are top photographers who command top dollar in terms of pricing. For you to get the kind of followership you need to be trending, you definitely have to invest. So you raise a very fundamental question of, is this something that the entry level micro player can play in? But I still think, spaces such as WhatsApp, as much as it's a very basic platform, is still very powerful. I know my gas dealer, advertises these things on our WhatsApp groups, and we're able to reach a whole community of apartment dwellers with your price at the click of a button. So I think things like WhatsApp and so I think there'll be spectrums. There'll be that person who just puts his shoes on WhatsApp and sends to
Mm,
groups,
mm,
and there'll be the one who has brand ambassadors and
correct,
designer photographers. So I think
correct,
there's a space for everybody, and
right.
it just depends on sort of your business model, your target market, and such things.
No, very interesting. And maybe still on that, just to push it a little bit more, as you were talking, I was thinking about the behavior change that's happened. Now, all of a sudden, people are very comfortable with ordering in, dialing for food to be delivered, etc. And I was curious whether there's a space for, if the big brands really go heavy, like you're saying. So, like, imagine some of your big supermarkets sort of say, look, we have physical presence, but if you don't want to come in store, we will deliver to your home, etc. Do you worry at all that that might squeeze out the MSMEs even more?
Well, I mean, if you look at some of the big players, I mean, think
Mm.
of a brand like Art Cafe.
Mm-hmm.
I think they have really been exceptional in rolling out their delivery strategy. They're really adapted
Mm.
to the times, and I think they're doing extremely well.
Mm.
But they have their target market. I don't think they'll be eating into maybe somebody who's selling African food around the kiosk, who also has his target market. So I don't think they'll be
Mm.
uh, sort of like cannibalizing. I think
No.
everybody
No.
has their space, because at the end of the day, you have your target market
Mm.
and you know how to reach your target market. So you'll find apps such as Glovo or Jumia. They offer you from your local kienyeji food to your high-end steakhouse. It's really for you to choose. The price points are available there for you. So I think it's the
Yeah.
world has become flat, according to Thomas Friedman. And
Yeah.
I think for me, I think it's actually more of a leveler, because
Yeah.
back in the day, very few people would have the budget to go to a big television station
Mm.
to advertise. But right now, everybody's online, and it's cheaper. And obviously, different people can invest differently.
Right.
But still, the fact that you can go onto sort of a global app and find the
Mm.
very entry level retailer to the very high end,
Mm.
I find it to be very, very exciting.
No, totally true. And something that I've just been thinking about for a while is, could you create a ubiquitous platform that aggregates all of these micro MSMEs so that you benefit from what you were saying? So when the gas dealer is going onto Facebook, he's trying to use Facebook's ability to crowd customers or potential customers into one place. Could you create a ubiquitous platform that has that gas seller, that has your mamamboga or the vegetable seller of the street, that has your mason or a plumber, or that has different MSMEs of different cadres, different services, and then it becomes some somewhat of a one-stop shop. So if you really want to make a purposeful decision on supporting your local MSME, you can do it in a safe, clear, easy, convenient platform that also gives the MSMEs economies of scale. Curious for your thoughts.
You know, Kim, that is such a wonderful business idea that I've always been curious why nobody is attempting it
Yeah,
in the market.
yeah.
I know Safaricom some time back, they had something called Masoko,
Mm-hmm.
which was sort of bringing together different people. I don't quite hear about it as often as I used to.
Mm.
But for me, I've always wondered, where is that entrepreneur who can almost create an Amazon
Mm-hmm.
for
Exactly.
Kenya, or
Exactly.
a Craigslist, for Kenya. And
Yeah.
I don't know why. I don't know if it's maybe the business models are harder to implement here or
Yeah.
not. But for me, it just seemed like a winner. But I guess
Mm.
there's a lot of information asymmetry in the market in terms of how do you make sure that stuff is quality? How
Right.
do you make sure that people who say that they are plumbers truly are plumbers
Right.
and are not just posers? So I think maybe that
Yeah.
screening process maybe has sort of been weaker. But for me, I agree with you. I think that is something that can be incredibly profitable if approached well. But I mean, between you and I have not done the math to see why it's not happened as it should.
Right. No, I imagine the margins, of course, it'll come down to a margin question and like how big, because really now at this point, it will be value pricing, right? You'd be trying to be as competitive as you can. And I know platforms have generally struggled with, similar approaches. And there's been, uproar, for example, when e-hailing companies try to come in and create a ubiquitous platform to support transport of people up and down, and the fear that that's stealing jobs away from regular taxi operators. But part of the reason why this is top of mind, and I'd love us to listen to the next entrepreneur and gather her thoughts, is because the really small MSMEs may not be visible enough even to be supported through initiatives that governments and other well-wishers may have in mind. So take a listen to this, guys, and then we will quickly regroup on this conversation.
So my thought process about World MSME Day is spot on. And with it, I'm looking forward to seeing that we are able to just congregate persons in the MSME space to have conversations with regard to what are the challenges they're facing, not with an end goal of actually finding solutions per se, but people speaking out, and this being a basis for collecting data points with regard to how are we to support the MSMEs world. So I'm in total agreement that this platform will be a great value add. For me as a business owner, I would like to speak from the point of we are very small. And if the government was even to wake up today and say, we are gonna support businesses, hey, can you come and collect funds? I don't even rank among the top businesses that will be given opportunity to, because it's so small. The government will be focused on big corporations or big multinationals or big hotel industries that are caught up in the COVID situation. So for me, and the mamamboga and the kiosk that is close to you, we in the immediate term are keen to see that you and any other person close to you show up to the business and spend. There is a tendency for people to hold money at this point in time because you're not very sure about the future that is acceptable. But also keep in mind that the ecosystem around is around you for the provisions that you may need from delivery of bananas, or the butcher or the kiosk that is next to you. They only sustain themselves if people actually buy. You get that? So as much as we are having an emergency budget with regard to cutting down costs and all that, we really encourage individuals to spend the little that they can and show up to the businesses and support. Right now, this MSMEs on the bottom rely on people showing up at their door, and the joy that comes with making one sale is, you can't even explain it. I will give a quick example. Before COVID, for instance, imagine that before COVID, that my restaurant was selling 10 plates. For me to break even, I sold 6 plates of food. So my margin of profit will be for the 4 plates that I'll sell thereafter. Then COVID happens, then you have 0 sales, right? For 3 months, you have no sales at all. And then now you're opening the gates for people now to come in and spend. And I'm selling only 4 to 5 plates a day. That is below the break-even point. And it means that the debt that I've accumulated for the 3 months that I have not been able to make any sale, plus now selling below the break-even point, it means it takes longer for me to be able to close that gap and be able to be at back to a break-even point and start making profit. So the longer people show up to our businesses, the longevity of the debt loop is bigger, and the gap becomes wider and wider. So the idea here is just to encourage people, when with their current emergency budget, to actually support us. And in the long run, when we all spend and money circulating, we somehow survive. And then with all negotiations and how to manage our overheads, then we're able to somehow revive the economy bit by bit. And within time, the gap becomes smaller and smaller, and then we are at a plateau level where the impetus of now the growth of businesses can be reinstated. Get it? Yeah. So it will be important to just encourage people to show up, and then it's also keep in mind that when it comes to ability to spend, everyone at the moment is keen to reduce their expenses. So it's cognizant of the fact that of the uncertainty that we have in the near future. But we're encouraging each one of us to be very sensitive also to seeing that everything not collapse because we are holding our money. And then now, for the rest of the businesses, it's gonna take, some businesses may need a medium or immediate rescue, especially for the MSMEs at the bottom line, because there's no, they, looking at the example I've given, they don't have extra reserves that will survive, help them survive for a month or so. If you don't show up today, they may be closed down, and a good number have shut down. So if we don't show up, then we are so guaranteed that a lot of bins are going to disappear, and it's going to take forever for them to ever come back, if they're ever going to come back. So it's very important. So keep in mind that the fear of contracting COVID-19 now is higher than actually the risk that actually the virus can cause. So with time, as people walk out and meet and return back to work and go to a grocery shop and buy something, or enter a restaurant and consume something, get to realize that actually if I adhere to the protocol of public health and expectation of how to behave this virus time, you realize that contracting the virus is minimal as long as you stick to the rules of how to behave. And in the interim, you'll be able to still participate and engage in activities that will support the business economy in the long run. So I'm really encouraging people to adhere to the code of conduct that is expected of us behaviorally, but also see to it how can we support institutions and the ecosystem around us in any way that we can do it. So that's my thought process, and I hope this reaches out to you.
All right. So I hope you just listened to our second entrepreneur talking about her restaurant business. Ken, we just before we went on to listening to the entrepreneur, we were discussing this idea of digitization. Can it work across? What does that mean for segmentation? Who would benefit most? Can you create a ubiquitous platform? And then are MSMEs visible enough to support or to receive support from the government or from other interventions that are designed? What do you think after listening to our second entrepreneur?
I think she had some great contributions, and even I am a business owner, and I could definitely identify with some of the things that she was saying. When we talk about stimulus during COVID, one gets the sense that the big players tend to get a bigger audience with the authorities that be, and one wonders who can authentically speak for the small business owner. And I look at countries such as in the US, where there's a Ministry of Small Business Affairs, or in Europe, where you have the Ministry of Small Business. And in countries like Germany, they really take small businesses very seriously. It's actually, I think that they're almost the world leaders in small businesses. And for me, I've always wondered, from a policy perspective, yes, we have the Ministry of Treasury, we have the central bank, but from a policy perspective, is it time that even that MSME department sort of moves into a ministry that has a cabinet sitting the presidential table? Maybe that might move things a bit more.
Definitely. And you talked about Germany, and as a behavioral scientist, I always love to think about sort of context and how did some of these countries get to where they are. And when you think of Germany's economy being completely eroded, after the Second World War, and they had to rebuild, one of my last trips to Germany, I was really surprised around how strong savings is as a culture among Germans, right? So, in fact, the largest banks in Germany are not credit banks; they're savings banks. So, I was just completely floored by that. And when I had conversations with folks, just trying to understand what's this about, they talked about how when the economy was completely decimated, they literally had to rebuild everything from scratch. And so, certain things that became important is this idea of let's save. We only can count on each other. So you can imagine if you've been bombed by the majority of the known world, you're in a place where you're like, wow, we have to really dig deep. We have to find and draw strength from each other. And so things like savings became really important. Things like supporting grassroots businesses became really important. So you accelerate the progress that's been made in the more than 60 years now, is when you realize that, wow, there's if you have a strong foundation and people realize that it is important for us to support whatever little we have, because that's the kindling that will start the fire, that will start the inferno, then you can start getting to that place. And I wonder, and I hope that whether we're talking about COVID or into the recovery period, we can use and the lessons and be able to sort of generate what little kindling we have from our MSMEs that are existing and come out of the crisis, and use that to start the next fire, the next inferno that catapults the country from a middle income country to beyond.
Wow, that is incredibly insightful, Kim. I mean, I think you're the first person to have connected to me the connection between World War II and the rise of Germany's economy, especially in terms of the business. I think that's such a powerful thing, which I have never ever thought about. And you're incredibly right, because I've always attributed German success to be sort of linked to the Protestant work ethic, that captured by Max Weber. But I
Right.
think you raised that point. And if you look at it, Japan is in the same space,
Exactly.
where when they lost World War II, it was really ground zero for both for them too. And in the space of half a century, they've really come up to be among the top 5 economies, built on savings, hard work, and endeavor. So I think that is a powerful message for us during COVID, that yes,
Yeah.
we're sort of deep in a very deep hole,
Yeah.
but this could be the moment where the phoenix rises from the ashes.
Correct.
And we start a new trajectory for this country. So I think that's something that I think a lot of business people who maybe might sort of be discouraged by what's happening today might benefit from hearing.
No, absolutely. And even now, as we think about wrapping up this episode, I think for me, the second entrepreneur had a lot of strong key messages around the fact that, we need to realize that the fear of the contagion at this point, may be greater than the risk of contracting the disease. And so we all need to, adhere to the social distancing guidelines, the preventative measures that are being advocated by the government and WHO, but really go out there and help drive liquidity, support your local MSME, go and do your bit, go and do your share to be able to help kickstart the economy and get liquidity moving through the system, even as policymakers and others think about how to make MSMEs more visible. I think we all have a role that we can directly play in terms of, supporting that local business owner that that local restaurant that that local bakery that you frequent, and even, for those who are inclined to catch a few drinks before 9 p.m., that local bar that, has your seat and your coaster waiting for you, right? Like, let's figure out ways where we can effectively pump in liquidity back into the economy to help all of us make it through.
I think what stood out for me was when she said we just need to have conversations.
Yeah.
about SMEs. Just
Yeah.
a place where there's open dialogue, open conversation, no agendas, nobody's trying anything. I thought that was very fresh,
Yeah.
because often sometimes some of the places where SMEs get to view their points, you're almost being directed towards some agenda, some
Correct.
marketing platform. But
Correct.
what she said, we just need a place where we can be brothers and sisters and discuss what our challenges are. And I loved that. I really loved that. And realized that's what we need, these open, safe spaces where there's no strings attached.
Yes.
Everybody's just expressing what their strengths are, and themes are organically coming out. And these
Exactly.
themes are sort of finding their way into policies and policymakers. For me, I thought that was, I think she really hit the nail on the head on that one.
Correct. Correct. No, thank you so much, Ken. And thank you everyone for listening. That has been our episode. That is our time. Have yourselves a safe, productive, and lovely day ahead. And we look forward to catching up with you on our next episode. And please, please, please leave us thoughts, comments, feedback. We would really appreciate to hear what you think so that we can improve our messaging and our future episodes.
Thank you, Kim, and have a lovely weekend.
Excellent. Cheers, everyone.